So I think it's a matter of information, and good luck to the BRICS nation increasing the awareness in the West with the Five Eyes nations and Western Europe and controlled media. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. You're not going to get any Russian and Chinese and Iranian threesome making a tour across the United States with conferences that are hosted by Wall Street. That ain't going to happen, Chris. What's going to happen is the United States suffers inflation disaster for what is coming with Donald Trump. Donald Trump will do a lot of different things. It will result in greater price inflation, a debt default, and a skyrocketing gold price, because we're going to suffer price inflation, and people are going to have to figure it out on their own using the alternative media, including your site, my site, and they're going to learn about the unit from us. I don't think they're going to learn from the Russian, Chinese, and Iranian tours. There won't be any.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And today it is part 2 of our interview with Jim Willie of the Hat Trick Letter.
I remember like it was yesterday. I was graduating from college, and we had the Arab embargo. We had all the problems. We had the quadrupling of oil. We had the gas stations. 1 out of 4 had gasoline. The rest did not. And I made a trip down to Tallahassee, Florida, to check out Florida State. That gave me an offer of a fellowship, Chris, Florida State University. I decided not to go there because the weather was too good. I didn't think I would study enough. I need bad weather to study. And that was perfect in Pennsylvania at Carnegie Mellon. All right, the point that I'm making is that back then, we did not have an OPEC cartel. It was created after the embargo. It was created like, I don't know, 10, 15 months later. And then they created a director of OPEC. And I quoted this director 5 or 6 years ago because there was a lot of hubbub going on with respect to the Saudis and inviting Russia. And now it's called OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus Russia is what the plus is for. Anyway, we had a director. How many times have you seen the oil price move based on comments by the OPEC director? Well, we're considering an oil reduction in output in the Gulf region. Uh-oh, the oil price just went up $5. Okay, now imagine a silver cartel. And you got some Chinese guy who's the director of the silver cartel. And I don't know what they're going to call it. But then he comes out with a statement. I'm talking like 18 months down the road, Chris. Comes out with a statement like, well, we're thinking about Mexico and Chile reducing by 10% their silver output. And the silver price goes up $2. If it happened for oil with respect to OPEC, it could happen with silver with respect to a new silver cartel. This is potentially dynamite for pushing up the silver price. Imagine they say, well, okay, and you know, Mexico is all over the news. They're talking about, and the Supreme Court has got to settle on this. It's a restriction on foreign direct investment to the mining industry. And it's not approved, but just having it floated and potential, it's brought about a 60%, 60% decline in foreign investment in Mexican mines. Okay. So they're going to see a reduction in the future months for output. Okay, I'm telling you, this silver cartel is going to be a big item. And I'm watching it, and there's not much news. I don't know if you heard, Chris, but the this new lady.
Jim,
pardon me?
could I just ask one question before you move on from that?
Yeah.
Can you give a ballpark percentage in terms of what you've heard of 75% likely to happen? What's your internal gut feel in terms of something
Of
like
what?
you're describing on the silver side? Is that,
Of
and
what?
can you,
Likelihood
of
of
how
what?
likely that is a silver
Oh, the cartel.
formation of something like that? Is that
I'd give it better than 50-50 to happen in the next year, mainly because COMEX and London have screwed around with the silver price, and India and China are really angry. India and China are building out solar farms. In the United States, it's largely California. And I've had two, I'll tell you, my consult calls are very valuable. I had an Ohio client and I had a Virginia client, each one reporting rather expansive solar farms in those states, Ohio and Virginia. It's the northern part of Virginia, that tip. Um, the
I'm actually, since you mentioned that, if I can pull up something that you may not have seen, I think this just came out this morning. First Solar is investing in research for a large facility that they are opening up. It was in the Midwest as well. So again, we're seeing as the move to green energy continues here, now US trying to innovate faster than China rather than just replicate the panels faster. So
Well, there's also a lot of development in the panel technology, the photovoltaic cell. They call it PV, photovoltaic PV. The PV cell is had two or three rather impressive developments, improvements in the last couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years. And what's really remarkable, Chris, is it does not bring about less silver. It brings about more efficiency and the motivation to do more silver, to do more panels, more volume, maybe a little bit less silver within, like they're calling it a square meter. How much silver per square meter, how many watts is produced per meter, square meter. It's really quite interesting, but the developments are not bringing about a lower volume of silver demand. It's more. And here's a trade-off. There are two trade-offs I'd like to mention with respect to silver. Um, when I was talking to the client um, in Ohio, we had we extended it because he said, Jim, we drive out there. We're 30 miles east of Cincinnati. We have a farm and we don't want to sell out to the solar people. And I said, describe them. Just when you go by one, describe it. He said, well, you look left and you look right. And like for 800 yards, all you see is solar panels and they're knee high. And I said, are they all connected with copper wires? And he said, well, yeah. Silver, Chris, when silver goes up from solar demand, copper will follow. Copper is going to be a sleeper. Not many people are talking about copper being a solar play. It is. All right. So correlated with silver will be copper price. There's another correlate. The guy outside Cincinnati said, Jim, they're taking out corn. They're taking out soy. There's a lot of farm production that's going out. It's not happening. And I said, wow, okay, so solar is interfering with food supply. He said, oh yeah, and this is not even it's not over yet. There's going to be hundreds of farms, and and I did not have access at that time to the information about Virginia, because the Virginia story was really quite different. The Virginia story was a guy who said, Jim, have you heard this, Chris? It's called Silicon Valley 2. It's in Northern Virginia. And let me see if I can remember the four companies: Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Tesla. They are the backers of Silicon Valley 2, gigantic data farms that they want to rival San Francisco. Because It's AI driven. The electric demand is going way up in a manner that they cannot handle. So they're building new data farms and they're expanding the power plants. And some of the expansion for the power plants in Northern Virginia are from Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Tesla. They're trying to expand the electric production because there's such a big demand. I don't know if you've heard this, but an AI query requires 8 times the electricity of a standard Google search. That's how much it digs in 12 different areas and comes back with an answer like go put. I call it go put, GPT, chat go put, and Explorer and Copilot and others. I actually have a colleague, Chris, who obtains significant amount of experience with chat go put. Pardon me, that's how I remember it. It's just so much easier than GP what? Okay, go put, chat GPT. We did a test. In fact, we did about 5 tests. I said, hey, Tommy, I got another query for your Explorer. And it was to check the bias of an AI query regarding, this thing that, you put in your arm, regarding, say, the election results and a few other things. And let me assure the audience, AI is very biased. And we had a saying when I was in computer scienceville, garbage in, garbage out. And the same applies with economic forecasts, where good people use the federal government's economic statistics. Well, we have a model, and we need labor, the jobless rate, and we need price inflation in order to conduct our model. Well, you got garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Let me just say that they had a very favorable opinion of Dr. Fauci, and they had a very favorable opinion of Sleepy Joe. Okay, so AI has a lot of programming rules. Now, they can claim that it's rule-based, and they can claim that they go out and capture all kinds of different data and put it together and give you a quick report, and it's got good grammar in the English. That's all well and good. But what are your rules to start with? Okay, and that's where it falls apart. So it's great if you're doing something like, well, what's happening with the shark population off the Caribbean coast? Well, yeah, that's fine. But if you're talking about, well, what about the election in Arizona a couple of years? Oh, forget about it. Just forget about it. As what was the guy? There was an Al Pacino movie of New York crowd, and they used to say, forget about it. Forget about it. Oh, Chris, I'm excited about silver, and I'm not the least bit worried that it's got a 28 handle. They're building a coil, a spring, and let me just say something. I didn't get this in. I wanted to get it in, but I didn't find a place. When we moved from 1950 to 2300 gold, it was the BRICS that did it, led by China and Russia. They told all their BRICS union compadres, turn your treasury bonds in, buy gold. This is going to be one of the greatest wealth transfers in modern history. Let me give you some figures that I came across. Of the treasury bond ownership, 7 trillion are owned by foreigners. 7 trillion. If they've gotten rid of even 15%, I'd be shocked. It's probably about 10% they've gotten rid of, but maybe a little bit more. It doesn't end there. Of the total stock and bond, including treasuries, stocks, bonds, treasuries, corporate bonds, junk bonds, you name it, mortgage bonds, And believe me, there are some wealth management firms in Switzerland and France and Germany that own significant amounts of stocks and bonds. And I got other stories that I'm not going to relate at this point. But if you add them all together, Chris, it's $25 trillion that foreigners own, not just treasuries, stocks, bonds, the whole kit caboodle. These are all, well, maybe not all the stocks. A lot of the bonds are going to be discharged in favor of gold. The trouble with gold that's coming up, and this is something that is a challenge that must be met, they're going to have to find a way that it can earn some interest. And I know exactly probably what you're thinking. Well, you're right, covered calls. When a company like, say, an insurance firm owns a boatload of treasury bonds, it is the interest earned on the treasury bonds that enables them to pay insurance awards for car damage, for hospitalization, for death awards, whatever. And they're not getting it. So that's one big reason insurance companies and pension funds are in trouble. They're not getting income off their nut, the nut of their investment, and it's primarily treasury bonds. When they were earning 4, 5, 6%, they were just moving right along, having a great old time managing all their insurance claims. They're not now. And that's one reason the insurance costs are going up, up, up. And it's not being talked about. The blame goes to treasury bond low interest, low bond yield. I'm telling you, we've got a magnificent transfer of wealth coming. Country after country. Malaysia just applied. They submitted their application to the BRICS. Indonesia did several months ago. And, you know, Americans probably can't identify where Indonesia and Malaysia are on the map. They might think they're in South America, but no, they're in the Pacific Rim, and their combined population is close to 500 million people. So that's a big deal that Malaysia and Indonesia might both be in the BRICS. That's a big deal. And I think with Indonesia announced recently that they're having an output problem with oil. So they might, I don't know whether it's peak oil in Indonesia or just really crappy management that too many countries suffer by putting people in charge who don't know shit from shinola about the oil business. Very interesting times, Chris.
Glad we got a clear phrasing of exactly how you feel on that one. Jim, a few last ones for you here before we wrap up today. We talked a little bit about whether the U.S. would be ultimately forced to match if you do have a unit currency with the gold backing. Here's the other thing that I've been wondering about, because, again, I heard about this back in February. I'd mentioned it a little bit on the show, certainly when the Pepe Escobar article came out, confirming a lot of what we'd heard. Talked about it more. Then we had Matt Riley on. I think I've sent you that interview, and certainly he's done a great job of reporting what's happening. So with that said, what I found interesting is that I've talked with a couple of people that are guests on my show and other shows in the gold and silver space. This is within the last 2 or 3 weeks. And so people that, you know, if you're watching at home, you'd be familiar with as well, you, Jim. And they still didn't have any idea about the unit. Now, it's one of those things where once you're aware of it and then you start following it, you become something in your mind that you know is happening in the background, however that plays out. Yet it really hit me because there was a friend of mine who went down to the Rick Rule Symposium about a month ago, or a couple weeks, month ago or so, and he mentioned nobody was talking about it there. And I'm thinking, gee, even within the metals community, there's a lot of people who dig into this stuff every day. I'm not saying it critically, but just that are unaware, which means that I'm imagining that of the entire population of the planet, yes, people have probably heard Putin talk about it, maybe Sergei Glazyev, or seen some of the other deals. But in terms of that, there's actually a proposal being passed around that includes a 40% gold backing. I'm guessing that most people on the planet have no idea. So if you get to the point, and again, I'll mention then that Pepe Escobar article we highlighted before, he said one of their next steps was raising public awareness. Not that this is going to be something used by the public, yet what I'm getting at here is that if they're pushing this forward and people start finding out that, especially in a world where people don't know what might be the next thing, but there's a growing awareness that our current system seems to be on borrowed time, isn't there also going to be a degree to which, as that emerges and people see this happening, if it does indeed happen, that then you also have the global population, I would certainly imagine, would be trying to front run that. And again, if this is happening at the same time where you have interest rates now being cut, which is perhaps what could be the signal where we've seen this rally that's been largely in the East, not in the West yet. Well, now they're getting their signal too. So a lot happening, but I'd love your comment on the possibility of, if this plays out, do you have citizens also front running that as they find out about it?
Well, this has to do a lot, Chris. Pardon my moving around. I'm just a fidgety guy. I got a sweaty back right now. This has to do with the Five Eyes nations. And an extension of Five Eyes is Western Europe. So Western Europe, United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand don't talk much about the unit. They don't talk much about the BRICS. Okay, they've got controlled media. So the West, the primary nations in the West have controlled media. They don't talk much about gold and silver. They don't talk at all about BRICS. They don't talk about the unit. They don't talk about anything that's really important in global finance. They don't talk about the dollar losing its status okay, we're down, we're getting close to 50% usage now in global trade for the dollar. We're rapidly declining for Forex reserves that are US Treasury based. These are not stories that are in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, or LA Times. The United States is not well informed. And I'm not really too surprised about the Rick Rule conference, because they're probably very focused on mining stocks, and they're focused on available gold and silver coin dealers, not dealers so much as where does one buy gold and silver coins, and what is the safest way for making payments. I don't find that Americans and especially Europeans, because they've gone back into the dark ages since the sanctions, I don't find that Americans are really astute in seeing what's coming down the road. Because, I'm not making this up, most Americans don't know much of anything about the dollar. They don't know that it's being used in global trade. They don't know that Treasury bonds are held in foreign central banks. I've asked some people who visit me and people I meet at like sports bars, I ask them dollar questions. They don't know anything about anything. I mean, they are dangerously ignorant about the dollar and global matters of finance. I could recite a lot of different questions, and I had my favorite. And actually, since that illicit lockdown in 2020, I haven't gone to the sports bars much. What I've been doing, this is just a personal note, but it's really college football. I go on a Saturday, and I meet a couple friends, maybe if I'm lucky, and I get assaulted by attractive young women, and I watch a couple of games and have a really great dinner. But it's because they have 6 different college football games on, and that's where I mix.
And Jim,
that's where I mix.
Obviously, I think people at home are already asking this. Is there a way that someone can apply to be included when Jim Willie goes to a sports bar? And
well, you got to come down to visit. I had a friend come last Christmas from Chicago, and we saw 3 different games, bowl games. We saw the championship game. Oh no, wait a minute. Was that? Yeah, yeah. We saw the championship game in early January where Michigan won. Um, and it was a lot of fun, and he got assaulted, um, and he enjoyed it.
I think there'd be demand to watch sports with you at a bar.
Well, it could be fun, but I got to tell you, it's not like what it used to be 10 years ago. It's not at all like what it used to be 10 years ago. It's just a different game post COVID. Um, I don't want to. I don't want to get into that. Uh, Back to your question. Um, in Europe, they were never told who destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline. In Europe, they're not talk. They don't get any information in European press about underground activity in Ukraine regarding small people, nor white powder substances. In Europe, they're not informed about what's going on with the war. They're actually told that Ukraine is on the verge of driving the Russians out, when the Ukrainians have suffered probably the most humiliating defeat in 200 years of war. The Europeans and the Americans are not told much about finance. They weren't told about the Credit Suisse bank failure until it happened. I got that 2 months in advance, Chris. I said that in February of 22, and it happened 2 months later. Maybe it was 20. I think it was 22. 22. Um, so I think it's a matter of information, and good luck to the BRICS nation increasing the awareness in the West with the Five Eyes nations and Western Europe and controlled media. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. You're not going to get any Russian and Chinese and Iranian threesome making a tour across the United States with conferences that are hosted by Wall Street. That ain't going to happen, Chris. What's going to happen is the United States suffers inflation disaster for what is coming with Donald Trump. Donald Trump will do a lot of different things. It will result in greater price inflation, a debt default, and a skyrocketing gold price, because we're going to suffer price inflation, and people are going to have to figure it out on their own using the alternative media, including your site, my site, and they're going to learn about the unit from us. I don't think they're going to learn from the Russian, Chinese, and Iranian tours. There won't be any. There won't be any in Europe either. There won't be any in England either. This is going to be a slow process. And what I think the Russians are going to have to do is buy a few US and Western media companies. And good luck with that, because that'll be blocked by, some trade commission run by a bunch of effing Nazis.
Maybe a takeover bid for the hat trick letter. You never know, because like you said, if people want to stay tuned on what's happening with things like this, obviously the hat trick letter that Jim writes at Golden-Jackass, which we'll show in a minute, but one way of keeping track. Jim, if I may, just two fan questions that have come in while we're recording. And again, I'll mention that we're recording Tuesday afternoon, and by the time this is aired, we will have already seen the results from the Fed's announcement that come out Wednesday afternoon. I'm wondering myself, I think we're going to get the rate cut announced that at this week's meeting, saying that, hey, in September, we're going to start cutting. And perhaps it'll be interesting to see the gold and silver reaction to that. But the question from Daryl's crystal ball, you've talked before about how the Fed essentially needs rate cuts and rate hikes simultaneously. Are they going to deliver both at this week's meeting, Jim?
I never said they were going to do a rate cut and a rate hike at the same time.
Well, you said they need them.
What I said is they're going to alternate between the need to do a rate cut, and they can't because of inflation, and the need to do a rate hike, but they can't because of economic depression. So they'll bounce from one to the next, to the one to the next, to the one to the next, and not do anything. And I said that in February and March, Chris, and that is exactly what we've seen. No rate cut, no rate hike. Okay? I said we're going to talk about rate hikes and not do them. We're going to talk about rate cuts and not do them. Okay, now we're in a situation where Trump is going to begin to influence monetary policy because he's doing interviews for his Treasury Secretary. Okay, I think we're going to get rate cuts. I'm not saying it's going to be successful. I'm saying it's going to be happening. They're going to be reality. And the result is, as I said before, a little bit weaker dollar and a much higher gold price. Every time they raised rates, gold had a bit of a problem. The increase in gold price happened, Chris, after they were done raising interest rates. They were done raising interest rates last October, November. And after that, gold went up. So gold goes up when they pause, and gold is going to go up a lot when they cut. I hope that answers the question.
It does, and appreciate your comment there. And the last one coming in from Dr. Rex in Texas, who says, first-time caller, long-time listener, is my stack adequate, or do I need to go hog wild and go 100%? I'll hang up and listen to Jim's answer on the air.
I didn't catch the question. 100% what?
Gold and silver he's talking about.
Oh, gold and silver. Well, I don't advocate 100% anything, but majority gold and silver. Let me just put it simply. Put the majority of your money in gold and silver and make it the majority of what you hope to preserve. And whatever you don't put in gold and silver, be prepared to see losses. So only put in gold and silver what you wish to preserve. It's kind of like your teeth. My dentist says, Jim, only floss the teeth you wish to keep. So only protect, you guy in Texas, the funds you wish to preserve. Now, here's the irony. This is not so much irony. This is the paradoxical thinking. We're going to see a debt default, which means the dollar is going to lose value, buying power, purchasing power. And the Treasury bonds, they're trying to do a Treasury bond default while they do a Treasury bond rally from cutting rates. If that does not elicit laughter, then you're not paying attention. They want a bond rally because we're facing a default. Okay. When the bond loses value from the actual default, your gold and silver will go up in value because really your gold and silver is going to be holding value steady and your dollar is going to go down. It's backwards thinking. Okay, here's another little quick analogy. The dollar is going to get devalued in a big way versus gold. The dollar and silver are going to be devalued, not versus euro, versus gold. The dollar is going to be devalued versus gold, not the euro.
What's going to happen to the dollar? I wasn't clear on it yet.
It's going to take a big shit. It's going to get rejected, and people who hold the dollar will be outside looking in on the global trade union. The United States risks a permanent depression or a long-term depression. We're in a depression now. For anyone who has, let me just say, more than a 95 IQ, if you haven't figured out that we're in a depression, you're not paying attention. They're lying about inflation by 6%. Therefore, they're lying about economic growth by the same 6%. We're in a -5, -7% depression. Buy gold, buy silver, and whatever you don't, expect to face a loss, even in money market. Money market income cannot cover their overhead costs, so money markets are likely to lose 2 or 3%. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Buy gold, buy silver. Don't worry about premiums. The premium is it's a lie. The premium is the fraud when you sell. The premium is not the lie in the buy what you buy. That's the real price in what you buy. Buy it from Miles Franklin. Buy your millions from Gold Core. I'm an affiliate for both.
Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't add in the disclaimer, put it in your pipe and smoke it is not legal licensed financial advice, nor again with the percentages. I would not advise
Oh,
anyone
I'm just a
100%.
jackass with an opinion.
What's that?
I'm just a jackass with an opinion and take it as such.
Yeah, so by all means, do your due diligence on whatever percentage is correct for you. Although, so anyone does have questions on that, we do partner with Miles Franklin, and you can email us at arcadia@milesfranklin.com if you'd like to talk through some of the things you're looking at and what might be a right percentage, but just want to also don't go overboard and consider all of these things. So, with that said, Jim, I appreciate everything that you shared here today. This was another fun one. And perhaps just before wrapping up, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching and listening who are saying, I have not yet had enough, need more, Jim. Where is the source? Tell them about the fountain.
Well, it's golden-jackass.com. And I'm very happy with my website manager. He's a highly skilled fellow. He improved everything right around January of 2020. We did a kind of a backup year in 2019, and we went full bore. The interview and articles link right next to subscribe was recently updated, so a lot of my past interview links are now they're up to everyone but the last one I had over the weekend. The subscribe button is right there in the center. It's the stock and trade for the newsletter. It's my guaranteed, or let's just say it's my assured income that's coming in. It helps me to support 6 kids, 3 families, and I'm doing pretty well with that. But at times I get really frightened by some bizarre events. I don't wish to get into that, but the subscription is for the hat trick letter, the newsletter. The consulting is something it's quite popular. I'm up to 760 of them, Chris, since January of 2020. So it's 4 years and a few months, 4.5 years, 760 of them. It's really quite amazing. And that provides me, I would say 1 out of every 10 consult calls is a two-way street where I benefit from boots on the ground and information from the client. So it's actually a resource for my information. It's really quite valuable to me. The donate button is a popular item. Gosh, I got about 5 of them last week. It was very nice. One yesterday from a lady who'd done 3, and very, very nice lady. It no longer has PayPal associated with the donate feature. The sponsor is for more wealthy people who wish to make a large contribution to my cause for the truth and fighting fascism in a hidden way, a fascism war that most people don't even know. I've actually asked my brother, who was Phi Beta Kappa in economics and political science, what's fascism, John? He did not have a good answer. He said, oh, Jim, you think you know? Well, what is it? I gave him a good definition, and he was blown away. I've asked several people what's fascism. They don't know. So we're dealing with that, and it's lodged in the political power of the party in office. So visit the newsletter. Visit the website, sign up for the newsletter. My contact us is a busy item for me. I spend an hour a week easily, sometimes more. But make a donation, do a consult call. Most of them find them really enjoyable, Chris. And I don't like to toot my own horn too much, but if I don't, who will? time after time, they say, Jim, this has really been fun. This has really been very, very helpful to me. And it's a thrill to talk to you. And, so sign up and line up your questions. I help a lot of people and I do the best I can. And when I don't know something, Chris, I admit it. And I got to say, regarding the donations and the support, it is primarily my Christian crowd, the Christian crowd. They see that I'm fighting very evil forces, and I believe they are touched by the hand of the Lord, and they help me, and I'm very grateful to them. And when I get a sponsor button donation, I fall on both knees, and I thank the Lord. So there's my little witness, and I hope people sign up. I hope they buy gold and silver. I hope they vacate their large bank deposits. What I mean is their bank accounts from large banks. I believe we're going to see Bank of America, the first victim. We'll see what happens. I think they're going to be treated in a very just manner. I'm talking about the people who are large depositors who have not gotten out from either being lazy or dumb. They're going to be treated generously, I believe. I don't buy the great taking. I don't buy it at all.
I sure hope not. So,
Yeah.
well, I thank you, Jim. And again, the link to Golden-Jackass is in the description field right below there. So you can go get a copy of the report or do a consult session or look into becoming a sponsor. And Jim, we'll wrap up for today, but this was a great one. Certainly an interesting period of life that we're living through here. And who better to explain all of the things that are going on than the great Dr. Jim?
I have two quick requests before you go.
Oh,
I'd like one of those silver bars and a couple of those gold bars behind you. You have so many, and I don't think if two are gone that you would notice that they're missing.
I've been needing some extra space to store some of these, so we'll get them right over. That'd be a hoot trying to figure out Costa Rica.
No, there's no shipment. It'd have to be smuggled in.
Was not easy to get silver, anything with silver in it, down to Mexico. I did learn that in my time there. So
don't bother. Use the tunnels or forget about it.
Well, maybe we'll get you back to the U.S. and do a tour here someday, and
I'm still
I'll watch over the bars for you.
Concerned about being harmed or killed in the United States. I had my life threatened twice in 2006, and they have not gone away.
Well, then we'll just leave the tour aside for now and hope that
we'll leave that alone.
There. Yeah,
we'll leave that alone. I might arrive by yacht off your coast for your barbecue.
All right. Well, we will look forward to the Jim Willie yacht party. Obviously, that's going to be a good event to get on the calendar.
I'd like to do a jamboree next month with you. We should look into that.
Well, I've been waiting on you for only 3 years on that one now, but we'll talk about that.
Okay, I might really just be 2, but I hear you. You could be right. I don't know.
Maybe we'll make Jim Willie Day happen sooner than later.
Chris, August is a very difficult month for me. It's the lowest month for subscriptions, and it's also very difficult to build it up because of vacations. But I'll be very busy in the first half of the month, I assure you, and I'll be hunkering down in the second half of the month trying to survive. I have not had any casualty with a small child for food, for shelter, or for school. And I hope to keep that record, Lord willing.
Well, that sounds good, my friend, and people can keep up to date with you once more at the golden-jackass.com. So, Jim, thanks as always for the update. Great to see you and catch up, and should be an interesting second half of the year.
Yeah, it's time for me to get a nap. I got up really early. I got up at 5 o'clock this morning. Anyway, thanks a lot, Chris. Your support is always valued, and your friendship is valued. And I tell you, your client base, your audience is very favorable and generous toward me, and I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you too, Jim, and we'll you take good care of yourself, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, very good. Bye now.
Well, there you go on part two with Dr. Jim Willie, the editor of the Hat Trick Letter, which you can find at the golden-jackass.com. Always great to hear from Jim, and can only imagine what his coverage will be as we head through the election and the rest of 2024. But I did want to thank Miles Franklin, who put together the Jim Willie Silver Special. And certainly, if you're looking to purchase silver, or if you'd like to support Jim, 20% of all commissions from the Jim Willie Constitutional Silver Special of junk silver for only $250 over spot will go to support Jim Willie. And you can place an order by calling 833-326-4653. And in honor of his special, he actually stuck around and gave us a few more bits of his own insight into something else that we have not yet discussed that's going on in the silver market. And we'll share that in a moment. But again, if you do want to get junk silver for only $250 over spot, call us at 833-326-4653. And Jim, one last note I'll pass along before we wrap up. Did hear a podcast from Philip Newman, who does the Data for Metals Focus, last week. And one thing he mentioned was in terms of buybacks. He said in the first quarter of the year, there was a lot of high net worth demand for some of the buybacks that absorbed some of that supply and gave the dealers a place to send a lot of the coins they were buying back. He said that has dried up in the second quarter a bit. And so now we're seeing, like you and I had described, some more of the dealers melting down some product. I don't know how widespread that is, but have talked with one wholesaler who has confirmed, not that he thinks that, but that he has been seeing that happening. So,
Yeah, that's actually an unfortunate item of news in the sense that individual people and families are selling their silver coins that are going to triple in value. And they're doing so because of price inflation and cost pressures to the household. It's very sad and very unfortunate. But for people who have extra savings and for people who are wealthy, it's time to load up on gold and silver, because this is going to be a historic rally. And I believe, and Andy was talking about this, Chris, that the central banks are positioning themselves for a revaluation. It could be double or triple the value of gold, the current price of gold, double or triple. This could be very exciting. Imagine just getting up in the morning and learning, oh my gosh, we don't have a $2,400 gold price, we have a $5,000 gold price. They revalued it because they wanted to survive their own self-produced credit crisis.
well, Jim, we did see one of the senators today talk about revaluing the Fed's gold to fund a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So just seems like we're seeing a lot of steps like this where now, okay, and also if you can use an accounting maneuver to purchase something, makes you wonder, okay, well, how else stock and bond or real estate markets crash? Do we have to revalue it farther? Or slippery slope, but interesting things happening out there, certainly.
Oh, silver, it's the big discount. It's the steal of the century. Buy your silver and don't worry about it. And in a few months, we'll be pushing $50, which will be close to 100% gain. I mean, this is a lock. I laugh when I see them putting it down to 28 on a handle. They're committing suicide. They're trying to get an open door for Bank of America, and they don't need an open door. They need an open country. And it's the door is not going to work. Bank of America can't fit through the door. This is going to be very exciting. I'm very jazzed for what's going on, but this is also a near-death experience for our country. We need to get our country back. We need to get on the gold standard. We need to reindustrialize our nation, and a lot of the reindustrialization will be using silver. There'll be new energy functions and technology. A lot of it is going to be derived from silver. And remember what we said during the interview. If they ever produce a silver cartel with Russia, China, Mexico, and their Andean neighbors, look out. We got a lot higher prices coming. Very exciting.
Well, clearly, Jim Willie for Secretary Treasury in the next administration. I think you'd be a lot more popular than Jamie Dimon, at least on our show and with our audience here. So, again, certainly if you are in the market for silver, and here's a way to also support the great Jim Willie, 20% of any commissions from the Jim Willie Constitutional Silver Special. Just give us a call at 833-326-4653. You can talk with Yara, who will be happy to help you with that. And if you do have questions for me, I'll be happy to check in as well. And Jim, we thank you for all that you're doing. It's great to catch up with you, and we'll do this again soon. What are we in? End of July now. I guess this part will be airing August 1st. So a lot happening in the next couple of months, and you take good care of yourself. And thanks.
Hey, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to everyone at home watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Bye now.